Serious drug dealers of Reddit, have you ever called CPS on a client? If so, what's the story? Asterisk asterisk attention. Serious. Tag notice asterisk asterisk asterisk. Jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted. https www.reddit.com/r/askreddit/wiki/index #wiki_rule_6- in asterisk any asterisk comment, parent or child, asterisk parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Asterisk report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AM or request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. Asterisk I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit. Messaged compose to E=R ask Reddit. If you have any questions or concerns. Asterisk removed. Ah yes, back when I was younger, maybe 17, I got my first job at Domino's Pizza. One of my managers was a really scummy 24-year-old guy that looked like a troll, had astoundingly bad hygiene and also a shitty attitude, but sold good weed and bought me cigarettes. This was my first experience having older friends able to get me good stuff on demand like that. One day he hooked me up with a friend of his that was selling mushrooms. So I met with that guy and bought an ounce, and then walked to my manager's house to sell him some and also get some weed. So it turns out him and his similarly aged sister, who has a 1-year-old baby, both live in makeshift bedsheet bedrooms in the basement of the tiny house. They smoked inside, windows closed, cats everywhere, bugs everywhere, weird gross sour smells coming from all areas. Everything gross. Their mom was home but she was senile and addicted to painkillers, as well as the sister. So we did the trade downstairs. And when I go back upstairs I go to the kitchen to throw some stuff away and I see the baby in a high chair, eating a pack of cigarettes. He's just sitting there tearing them open and putting in his mouth and spitting it out. I ran downstairs and told the sister and she just started yelling, "Mom! Mom, get the baby!" Quote, a couple times lazily, then gives up and goes back to just sitting there. It was surreal. I had never experienced such neglect and disgust from people. I left and waited 2 days to call CPS because I didn't want my manager to know it was me who called. I know the kids got taken away and she went to live with a different family member. Or at least that's what I was told. When I was selling to her, a lady shook her crying baby in front of me. I wigged out, took the baby, dumped approximately $500 worth of cocaine and heroin and called 911 from my car. She didn't put up a fight until the cops came to arrest her. She tried to sue me for kidnapping. Definitely not the best strategy for me. I was 18 and addicted pretty bad. But when the baby saw a doctor under state care, he was covered in bruises, a couple of burns, and had 2 broken ribs already. I'm convinced that she would have killed Hi Monsieur. He's 10 now and happy and thriving. The whole experience and legal battle when she tried to have me charged with kidnapping is how I got sober. I used to deal way back when I was a hot mess in an extremely abusive relationship. I called CPS on not only one person, but 6. The one that sticks with me most though, not only because of the severity but because I called twice, was this couple who used to pick up from me at a laundromat and we ended up seeing each other often enough I felt okay to go to their place. I was so fucking floored when I stepped through that door. I kid you not. They had taken up all the carpeting in the house and had torn down the walls to get at the copper wiring and pipes. They had no electricity or running water. There was nothing in that house except for some sleeping bags in what used to be the living room, and then I noticed a nest of blankets with bright blue eyes peering at me over the pile and realized that there was a toddler and a small child no more than 5. Until this point, I had never seen nor heard them talk about having kids. The poor kids were filthy and obviously malnourished. The house stunk of meth so badly I gagged. I couldn't believe it. I guess the look of shock was super apparent on my face because the dad said they were squatting and introduced me to their kids. I made some small talk and then left. The phone was ringing for CPS before I closed my car door. I gave them the address and let them know the conditions of the home, and they were squatting with 2 small children. Gave the names of the parents as I knew them and the names of the kids. They ended up going to jail for the squatting, and the kids went to live with a relative. They ended up contacting me back to sell to them after they were bailed out of jail, and I never responded. However, the guy the first was with at the time ended up selling to them, and they were living in a field in a tent with the kids. I got into a huge fight with my boyfriend over it and was so disgusted he still sold to the monsieur. I ended up calling CPS on them again. From what I heard from other people that knew them, the kids were taken permanently after that, and about a year later the mom ended up going to prison for attempted murder and the dad went to prison for check fraud some weeks after that. Edit. I should have mentioned that I sold weed, shrooms, X and acid. This was a long time ago, and I've since gotten clean and started my own family. But there was a girl I knew who was homeless with her newborn son. On Easter weekend, I was walking on this trail to go meet with some people to sell them a sack. It started raining and that, of course, made me mad. There's these bridges that cross over the top of the trail and lots of kids gather and smoke or get spun under the bridges. And that's where I found her. She was passed out drunk with some random guy under the bridge while her newborn baby sat strapped in his car seat in the rain. He wasn't under the bridge. He was crying, and he looked dirty. I didn't have any children at this point, but I panicked seeing the little guy. I grabbed him, dropped all the shit I was supposed to be selling, and walked off the trail and up the couple blocks to the police station. I told them what happened and where I had found Hi Monsieur. CPS took him and he ended up getting adopted. Removed. This is a sad story, but I'll tell it anyways because it was the past. There have been so many stories, but this one takes the cake. It's the reason I stopped selling and turned my life around. I must have been 16 or 17 at the time. I was in high school. Also had a part-time job at Dairy Queen, a non-top school and regular job. I was selling crack and heroin. I was also selling weed and cigarettes at school. This story involves a heroin and crack user. At the time of this incident, I've already been selling hard for about 1 or 2 years. Profit was pretty good. I'd say around $300 per day on average, which was for my age. But I spent money as fast as it came. I was young and I was dumb. So as a DD selling rock, crack, and pants, heroin, I would use some addict's house to sell out of. I guess the cops would call these things crack shacks or projects. I'd be supplying the addict a cheaper price for products so that I could use their house to sell out of. They would also refer a lot of other people to buy from me, and or they would help sell for me in return for product. So the incident is in this addict's house. He, about 50-year-old man, has a girlfriend, partner or something like that. The girlfriend had a little boy, maybe the age of 3/4. At the time I didn't know how to tell how old a kid was. I didn't ask either because I was ashamed of myself for not preventing his mother from using. This kid though, I felt like he was my little brother in some way. I would cook for him when he was hungry and his mom was always too messed up to do anything. One day, I go to work at the shack. It was a regular day. I get into the house, get my products ready, weigh out the stuff and bag them up, knock on the bedroom door of the guy, homeowner. I see him sleeping. His girlfriend is also on the couch sleeping because she is always high and messed up. The kid is just sitting there, watching TV. I make him some macaroni and cheese. Now I gotta wake up the guy because I need an update on what products he's moved the day before. So I go in his room. Monsieur, I see his eyes were still open. white foam all over him like he's overdosed. It's normal for me to see overdoses, but this was beyond an overdose. He's been overdosed for too long, which means he's dead. He was probably overdosed for at least 10 hours because I could smell it and he was cold to the touch. His vomit was dried and his eyes were dried. Now I'm in one of the biggest panics I've ever been in. As I'm trying to figure out what to do, I sit down with the kid and stay there until he finishes his mac and cheese, thinking about what I'm going to do next. His mom, sleeping behind me on the couch, is still alive but has no idea what had happened, or maybe she does. I don't know. I left the shack, drove about 2 blocks away, used the prepaid cell phone. I have to call the police and report it. Sat in my car until the police showed up. From that day on, I am anti-hard drugs. I still wonder about the little kid. He's probably 16 now. Without a mot, monsieur, every time I see the mac and cheese at the supermarket I get this fucked up feeling in my gut. And for the guy that died, I know I didn't kill him. I've accepted that, but could he have lived longer if I was never in his life? His life story was pretty amazing. He did cool things when he was young. He got into drugs when his mom passed away. He didn't have a dad though. One tip for anyone reading this: never judge a person on where they are in life, even if they are crackheads, as many people would say. Some people go through the most brutal situations and have no love and support to get on their feet. I'm glad I was able to be the Mont's friend before he died, and I know I treated the kid as a big brother, father, and I hope he remembers that part. Twice. Left anonymous tips, which I know are hard to follow up for such a strange child protection agency. But as a pot dealer, it was all I felt I could do. I found out later one of the kids was put into foster care, adopted by the foster parents, and recently graduated a trade school. I have no idea about the other kids' siblings, but I hope they made it too. Kids should be protected. Humans only get one childhood. Let's let kids enjoy it and grow to happy adults. Don't hurt them intentionally or by your own stupidity. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. That also means washing your hands, people. Edit 1. Thanks for all the kind words, guys. A guy in the comments pointed out something that everyone should know. If you need to report to CPS, you flood them with details. Lots of details. It's the only way they can act. A one-sentence tip won't cut it. Real short and simple. Yes. A friend of my girlfriend introduced us to her neighbors who were like 50 to 60-year-old hippies that looked like a bad acid trip but bought weed regularly for full price. Couple months down the road, they start being more friendly with my girlfriend and I, and start talking more when we'd go drop off the shit. The topic began with her telling us how she has custody of her daughter's oldest born because her daughter was sitting time at a women's prison. Backstory on the kid: looks 15 but clearly has the mind capacity of a 6 or 7-year-old. Not sure what was wrong with her specifically, but you could tell there were issues. Near the end of the conversation about her daughter, she brought up the fact that her granddaughter was prescribed Adderall 30XR, and whenever they got her prescription, they'd dump all the little beads into a bowl to use whenever they couldn't find meth or whatever they needed, and instead fill the Adderall with Benadryl to make the kid sleep. Till this day, I'll never forget the emotions I felt after getting out of there and sitting in my car. My hands were shaking so bad it was hard to Google information about CPS, much less type information in. I felt goosebumps in every pore of my scalp. As a father of 2, I never knew such evil existed. Obviously in movies and shit, but never experienced something firsthand like that. Removed. I probably shouldn't mention this on my main, but when I was a younger guy that first sold drugs in Toronto, I was once hanging out of my distributor's house. Ghost was a scary motherfucker, and I was a skinny white oil brat messing about in a world I had no part in, but he sort of became my friend and we'd hang out and smoke and talk all the time. In between shakes I would help him on. And #X200B. Anyways, one day this crackhead shows up at the garage begging Ghost to sell her some gear. Coke. To cook and wearing a bunch of suspiciously baggy shit. And #X200B. Now this is a man I've seen hold a gun to a guy's neck at point-blank range. I've also been with him when he repods some shit-baked college kid's giant as TV off his wall while he and his roommates were made to sit on the floor like children and get lectured on how lucky they were that they weren't just getting jumped. Guy just owed him like $100 for weed, but then he went and bought this TV. And #X200B. Ghost wasn't someone I would have considered a good guy by any stretch of the term, but I was chopping for him and I appreciated having a boss buddy that was a hard ass in that world because, like I said, I did belong. So I needed someone like "Hi Monsieur" and #X200B. So anyways, Ghost opens the garage and instantly tells her she shouldn't be there and how he knows she's pregnant. It was his cousin's baby, and won't be selling her anything but weed anymore. She flipped out, begged, saying she was gonna get an abortion so it didn't matter. And #X200B. He just shook his head and pretty much said it wouldn't be happening, and what's more, she wouldn't be buying off anyone she knew anymore, as he was gonna chat with them all. He was well connected, and like I said, kind of scary, crazy. She pretty much told him to fuck off and then walked off down the street cussing him out. Ghost shakes his head, gets up, pulls out his phone and starts making phone calls for like an hour, explaining how if he catches anyone selling to his cousin's baby mama anything other than weed, he'd put them in the ground for making his baby cousin a crack baby. Literally everyone agreed not to sell to her and he hung up. Then he told me to get in the car as we'd have to go visit these people now. Great. And #X200B. He said that them saying they wouldn't mean shit unless he at least showed up at a few of their places to make his seriousness about this more clear. I expected him to be crazy aggressive dick to them, but he actually offered them all deals next time they got off him. He distributed to everyone in the area at some time or another, and got everyone smoking J's, talking all consciously about how crack is what creates the cycle for hood kids, and that just because someone has to sell the stuff doesn't mean you can't think about who you sell to. Anyways, obviously this chick still tried, but she ended up having to get an hour bus ride across the city to find someone who could sell to her. So Ghost finds out a couple days later when someone told him at the garage while we were all hanging out, and then right then and there this motherfucker starts taking screenshots of his own messages with her from a while back when she's buying shit off him, crafts an email on his phone and send the evidence on himself to CYFS with a report about her buying drugs and how he knows because she's bought off him and tried to do so again since she got pregnant. He said they don't press charges or pursue like hops, but DAAAAAMN. I wouldn't have been that confident. And #X200B. Guy threw himself under the bus to make sure her report was properly followed. Anyways, I've been gone for years and years now, but I still have Ghost on FB, and he's not only not a dealer no more, he started a record company and legal weed business, but he's constantly posting pictures hanging out with his baby cousin in the studio, and the mom's even in some of the photos, and I can't guarantee, but she looks not only clean, but downright healthy and well-dressed too, so she clearly turned things around and now has this deep friendship with Ghost, as well as the baby has a father figure. Ghost's cousin dipped. And #X200B. I also know Ghost quit selling shortly after that report and transitioned to legitimate businesses. He got heated out and thought he was the focus of an investigation due to unmarked cars outside his house a bunch of times after this, which I suspect is from the report, and that CYFS did in fact hand the evidence onto the police. And #X200B. It was the single most unexpectedly commendable act I've ever witnessed. And #X200B. TL. Dr. drug dealer, distributor, threw out himself under a bus and dedicated himself to stopping a pregnant chick from buying crack off people. Yes, I was a stupid teenager and thought I was a hotshot from selling coke to my peers. The money was nice, but at the time it was more for social standing. Eventually it got so out of hand that I was selling to people's uncles, fathers, aunts, and cousins. It was pretty daunting as a teenager, but like I said, the money way good and so was the social standing. Eventually I start moving heroin, and one day a buddy calls me up and asks me if I'm good go. I tell him yes and ask him how much. He informs me that it's for his mom, that he doesn't live with, and we go through the whole dance of him calling her, then calling me, then calling her again to set up the deal. Eventually the amount and price gets set and I hop in my shitty old car to the next town over to make the deal. Now I'm used to shitty houses. I live on the cusp of suburbs, city, and rural, so you see all sorts of folks in your daily life. But this one was a special little shithole. The best way I can set the scene up is the scene in Breaking Bad when Jesse goes into those meth heads' house. But they weren't on meth. I've seen my fair share of dope heads, but these took the cake. It took about 30 minutes for them to let me in, and when they did, the stench was like a punch in the face. You couldn't even see the floor. All sorts of trash covering the carpet of the shitty apartment. Honestly, at this point it didn't even faze me. I made the deal and took the money, but during the awkward small talk I heard a little coo from the room over. I am not the most confrontational person, but they were so strung out that I wasn't threatened at all. I asked them what that sound was and they said it was their baby. I asked how old. They said 7 months. I immediately took stock of the room around me. Rotting food, cat shit, garbage bags everywhere. I left that apartment complex and sat in my car debating whether I would get busted if I called the police. Eventually I googled CPS and made an anonymous claim. Monsieur, nothing happened to me and the kid got taken away. Neither of them know it was me that called, and I stopped selling that shit and went through rehab in 2016. Clean ever since. Judging by their Facebooks, they're still trying to get that kid back. I really hope they don't. Former dealer here. It's been many years now, but I sold crack, heroin, pills, cocaine as a teenager. I once had a lady come in the trap house with a newborn. She was literally selling herself and/or her baby for a few rocks. When I saw the newborn in shitty diapers and dirty as fuck, I knew I had to give her a few rocks. I let her smoke and leave. I also called BCW, Bureau of Children's Welfare, on her as soon as she walked out. She lived on my street. I couldn't let her try to sell her baby. I couldn't let her keep it either. I just couldn't call the police. The baby was in a foster home less than a week later. The lady disappeared shortly after. I never saw her again. I hope she never got the baby back. She was a real piece of shit. Removed. Back in college I went over to a single mother's house to drop off some bud. The kid was 3 years old. I walk in and notice it is extremely smoky, and I immediately have a hard time breathing. It smelled like rotten shit, trash, and cigarettes. I was there for about 3 minutes and went to use the bathroom, where I noticed fresh and dried blood on the toilet and shit smeared all over the floors and up the walls. The shit was old and hardened, and dead bugs were in the corners of the bathroom and piled on top of the feces. But that isn't the only icing on the cake. Once I left the bathroom, I went back out to the living room area and saw a big-ass rat run right across the floor. Looked like he came right out of Ratatouille. Then the mother asked me if I wanted to take opioids. So I got the fuck out of the house and called CPS. I pulled up to this woman's house. I was 19 at the time. She was a regular and often asked if I had any coke. I was strictly a marijuana dealer. When I walked into her house, she had 2 babies, twins. Female dealer here. When I asked to use the bathroom, she said she didn't have running water due to money issues. There was a 5-gallon bucket in the bathroom to pee and poop in. This bucket was extremely full. Not to mention the overflowing trash cans and tied-off trash bags in the living room, monsieur. I couldn't believe how gross her house was. I panicked. I called CPS and told them I was a family friend. I drove my car down the road a little and waited for the cops to show up. I watched them pull the woman out to the house in cuffs. She turned out to have heroin in her house. I still wonder about those twins today. I used to work at a chain restaurant about 4 years ago when I was around 21. There was a girl who started after me. Call her Ashley. Ashley and I became best friends almost immediately. She was almost 10 years older than me at the time, but you could not tell, especially by the way she acted. But at 21, that didn't really much matter to me. We used to sneak nips into work, leave work to get drunk and try to sneak back. Drink together out of work all the time. I knew she had a son that lived on the other side of the country that the father had custody of. She gave me some story about him lying, saying she was crazy and getting her child taken away, and nothing she did could get him back because her ex was manipulative. I bought it. Eventually I found a better job, and that's about where our hanging out friendship ended. We always stayed in touch on FB. I got pregnant with my son around 23, and she had had 2 daughters in that time. So we agreed to get together and let each other meet our kids. I get to her house, and I see her walking up the street towards the house without her girls. The oldest was 2, I believe, waving to me. I get out with my son and I ask her, "Where are your daughters?" "Oh, they're inside," she says. She left her baby daughters home alone, locked inside her bedroom to walk a mile up the road to get cigs. Okay, fucked up. But I went inside anyway. Kept my son in his car seat next to me on the couch. I can tell she's absolutely wasted already. But she pours herself 2 root beer Smirnoff nips into a cup. Let the daughters out of the room and turns the TV on for the monsieur. The house was clean. That is what really threw me off. Like, it looked like a great environment. She sits next to me on the couch and places her cup in the drink holder attached to the couch, and we just start catching up. About 10 minutes later, her daughter says she's hungry. Ashley yells, "I just fucking fed you. Watch your trolls." I was stunned. Then the little girl climbs up on the couch and grabs the cup of vodka. I say, "No, honey, that's not for babies." But Ashley stops me and says, "Oh, it's fine. It will probably help her sleep better tonight," and lets her 2-year-old daughter take a sip of her 100 proof alcohol. Now I am about to leave, getting my shoes on, and her husband comes in, who I also knew from the same restaurant where he still worked at that time. He flips. He says, "Ashley, have these girls eaten anything all day?" She said yes, she gave them grapes and cottage cheese. It was 7 p.m. monsieur. She had given her daughters only a few grapes and a bowl of cottage cheese all day. I was done. I called as soon as I got in my car. The father has custody of them now, I believe. He moved out of state somewhere. Thank God, because who knows how they would have ended up. Edit. I messed up words and adding some spacing for easier reading. Removed.